Rework rarity strength, please. There's no reason why the Artificer block version of the chainsword is outright better than its relic counterpart. I don't even use block weapons, but it's still annoying. Okay, so yes, the Artificer block version is potentially the Artificer block chainsword is potentially the best blocking weapon in the game due to its speed. Now, a lot of people have mentioned that the relic version of the blocking chainsword still does more damage. However, I just don't think people are really connecting the dots here. If the Artificer block chainsword is faster than its relic counterpart, the DPS, the total DPS you get from an Artificer blocking chainsword is going to be higher than the relic version of that weapon. Basically, the relic version of the weapon would have to do a total of, I don't know, 2 to 3 more damage, something like that, which would put the blocking chainsword, the relic version of the blocking chainsword, probably a handful of strength points away from the Thunderhammer. So ultimately, I think it is kind of a little bit silly that as far as DPS goes, the relic chainsword is just a little bit behind the Artificer blocking chainsword due to the fact that you can just swing the Artificer version a little bit more. I can understand why people are getting a little bit annoyed by the rarities. However, the way it's working right now, we have more melee weapons to use in that sense. But most of this only works out correctly if, the relic versions of these melee weapons have something to offer as well. A lot of people have mentioned the relic Power Fist. Some of those variants feel a little underwhelming, and we've discussed like every sort of rarity for whatever melee variant you want to think of, and I think this is the first time I've actually seen somebody kind of annoyed at the way the system is right now. So I definitely just wanted to give the conversation to you guys. If you find the way the way the rarity system ended up being with melee weapons, if you find that a bit annoying, yeah, we're here to discuss if this should be changed. And ultimately, if any sort of relic versions of these melee weapons get buffs and then the lesser versions of the rarities get nerfed, like on paper, it's just kind of silly to nerf the Artificer block chainsword. It really is, but unfortunately, just by the mere fact that you can swing it at least one extra time in the same time you would swing the relic version of the weapon, it is a little bit, it's a little bit puzzling for players to kind of piece this together, like, oh, the relic version should 100% be better, and it's like, well, it depends how many times you're swinging. So I would, you know what I would do? I would make sure the block version of the chainsword is just as fast. And unfortunately, that would leave us with less builds. However, I think it would make sure that everything kind of makes more sense. Going into siege mode, I don't know. Like, honestly, going into siege mode, any sort of melee buffs we can get is fine, but like melee's probably in a good spot. I just think, yeah, some of this rarity system stuff can be a little bit confusing for people. So, yeah, let's go into the comments. Let's see how people are, basically comprehending how this is working. But yeah, everyone's mostly on the same page about this. Yeah, I just want to clarify the point here is, it's about it being annoying for people to kind of navigate what melee weapons they should be using, because the relic versions say they're stronger, they hit harder, but there's variants that are faster, in turn making those variants just as good for DPS. If not, apparently better. So I can understand why people are annoyed at this system. So maybe they need to rework the rarity. But yeah, they actually say rework rarity strength. I assume they just mean in general. But some of those relic weapons have like some sort of passive damage bonus or something. That's what I've read in here. It's basically, someone mentioned the relic counterparts of these weapons are able to put out more damage, and there is like a hidden damage stat for them or something. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you guys know about that. But yeah, apparently the way the rarity system is working right now, or at least the way the stats are distributed, is annoying a fair amount of people at this point. If that annoys you, the fact that the green block power sword is arguably the best power sword will drive you nuts. Yeah, I've been hearing about this, the green block power sword. This is insane. Yeah, this is the one where it's like, dude, if the green blocking power sword is even arguably better than the relic blocking power sword, then buff the relic blocking power sword, please. Like, I would hate, again, it would feel awkward for them to go back and nerf some of these lesser rarity weapons, 100%. But still, there definitely needs to be some sort of sense here, because I like using green weapons to kind of like test out if a weapon can kind of punch up in a sense. But like, if the green version of the weapon is actually just better than the relic, then wait, you know what? This is actually a pretty good opportunity for leveling, because, I mean, at this point, everyone's probably fully leveled. But hey, if you're a new player and you somehow came across this video, use the power sword, the green blocking power sword. You're going to be able to punch up in difficulties with that, apparently, if you get good with it. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I have been hearing a lot about this weapon, and I won't say it annoys me. Like, I don't know. I feel like sheesh. It's a little inconvenient, I will say. It's a little inconvenient that some of these, you know, green weapons actually have better qualities than some of the relic versions. I'm just not 100% how much these relic versions are getting, you know, basically are getting nerfed in a sense, or I'm not too sure if the relic versions of these weapons feel underwhelming. However, if you compare them to the lesser rarity variants, yeah, the lesser rarity variants of some of these relic weapons, if they're better, then it just feels weird. It really does. I do like the fact that we have other builds, but like, is the relic blocking power sword really just like that bad that you can't use the green weapon, you know? That's wild. That is wild. Yeah, it's definitely the rarity system is definitely driving some people crazy, I think, when it comes to these melee weapons. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys actually used the green blocking power sword. We have somebody here who asks, how does that work? Won't it do less damage, or am I missing something? So someone here is about to explain exactly why it feels so weird that the relic weapons just aren't as impactful as some of these other variants. Yes, but how much less? The wiki has them at 13.x versus 14.x. That's hardly a downside, with the green being also faster, so likely to damage is, in a pure DPS perspective, is mostly the same, and the green comes on top in actual combat because of higher speed, means you can interrupt enemies as soon as you get 2 charges instead of having to wait till a combo finish. Okay, so yes, this is 13.x versus 14.x. I think this is the green version versus the relic, but if the green version is faster, the 1 damage fall off really isn't enough to, you know, basically be worried about not using a relic weapon. And I understand, like, on paper, this does feel weird. I can see both sides to this. It's like, in one hand, I want the relic weapons to be better, to be completely honest, than the green and purple weapons. But on the other hand, I like the fact that we have actual, like, more melee weapons to use. However, it's not like the fact that we have a good green weapon is, you know, taking any... the fact that we have bad relic weapons and a good green weapon, if we were to buff the relic weapons, the good green weapon might not be as good, and you might not even use it anyway. So it's kind of, it feels like the relic weapons right now are just being taken away from, or at least some of these qualities are being taken away from the relic weapons just to make them feel a little bit more balanced. And I don't know. I guess if you think about it, if the devs just aren't interested in buffing the relic weapons speed or anything like that to make them for sure better than the other weapons, then I think we should just take I think we should just take what we can get ultimately. However, obviously, I would like things to make a little bit more sense. This is one of those situations where I don't really have like an answer. The answer is what everyone's comfortable with. You know what I mean? So the best thing I can do here is just to point out, like, if they end up buffing relic weapons, that means some of these lesser rarity weapons aren't going to be as usable, or, you know, they're just going to be thrown to the side, which, I don't know, you can look at that in a sense and say, hey, that means we're losing builds, but it's also, we're also taking from those lesser rarity variants, we're also taking qualities from them and adding them to the relic versions. So it's like, essentially, if you fix this, the amount of builds are the same, but you may be buffing melee weapons that might not need a buff. However, the relic blocking chainsword, I have to admit, it doesn't feel like anyone really uses that anyway. So it's like, okay, why not? Just buff it a little bit. Just make sure it's a little bit faster so people aren't worried about, you know, using it, which is crazy because it's a relic weapon. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting conversation, but again, it all comes down to personal preference. That's why it's a little bit harder to get like a definitive, you know, like this is the right thing to do. I have never understood why they made the weapons have such wild variations between the same archetype of damage, speed, cleave, instead of just being straight upgrades over the previous version. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely pretty interesting, and it's mostly just like 1, 2, maybe like 3 or 4 other melee weapons that are like less rarity, better than the relics. It's not like every green weapon is better than relics, and it's not like relics aren't good. You know what I mean? Like, you're definitely gonna hit harder with a charge attack from a relic chainsword than a artificer chainsword, no matter what, for the most part. Again, this is mostly due to this like speed. This is really mostly centered around, you know, weapon speed. Yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this one, 100%, because this is definitely one that I feel like people kind of like the fact that we have, you know, green and purple rarity weapons that are worth using, and I agree. I also think that, but at the same time, it's like, well, then nobody's using these relic weapons, and what? Like, that, what's the point of leveling these weapons up in that case? I feel like, if anything, this is more of like a criticism to relic melee weapons. Maybe they need to be better. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, that's probably the case. That's probably the case now, the more I'm thinking about this. Yeah, I find it strange how slow it is. 1 attack speed, really? The combo is slow. Oh, wait. Okay, wait, is that true? I'm pretty sure, yeah, that tracks. The blocking chainsword has 1 speed. When I used it, I remember it was very slow. You're dead before it can even get through. It turns into a strictly counter-attack weapon, and offense is off limits. Dude, you can't have a blocking weapon. You can't have a blocking weapon feel slow. It's supposed to be a melee weapon, you know what I mean? That's, okay, yeah, I think that's... I kind of put my foot in the mouth saying that there wasn't really a solution to this, but there definitely is. There definitely is, and unfortunately, it does come off like, hey, we need to buff some of these already pretty good weapons just so they you know, actually earn their title of being relic. You know what I mean? 1 attack speed on a relic weapon is practically unacceptable. There's definitely other examples of this. I know people think I think it's the blocking power fist, maybe? One of the power fists feel very slow, to the point where it's like the fencing power fist is one of the better variants out of the relic versions of the power fist, just because it's a bit faster. Which makes it more fun, to be completely honest. Like, faster melee weapons are more fun. So, the blocking chainsword, why not make it the best melee weapon? If the blocking chainsword gets a attack speed buff, I'm pretty sure it becomes the best melee weapon in the game. But like, dude, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Do you think that devs kind of like soft nerf some of these relic weapons just because they were getting too good? I would hope not. I would hope not. And if they did, I would imagine it was before Absolute 2.0, right? So ultimately, they could definitely go back on that and kind of like try to iron out some of these rarities a bit. Yeah, sheesh. I mean, dude, look, I understand why, like, a green version of the weapon or the purple version of a, like, melee weapon, I understand why that's actually useful to be good. I don't want them to change any of the stats. I don't want them to change any of the stats of any other weapon. I just think maybe some of these relic weapons need a speed buff, because that's essentially what's really separating them from these other, you know, rarity weapons, is just the fact that it's slow. 1 attack speed on a relic weapon, that's crazy. Power Fist also has the same issue. Thunderhammer, I talked about this. The Thunderhammer feels very slow with the light swings, and a lot of people mentioned you should be doing the charge attacks, which is fine. But still, with the charge attacks, you're still not getting that much contested health back anyway. Regardless, that might be a bugged perk that is doing that for the Thunderhammer. However, still, even if you do a light swing with the Thunderhammer, you're getting like no contested health back. That's neither here or there for the most part. As far as contested health, I feel like this is definitely a different conversation, because as far as the Thunderhammer is concerned, pretty sure all the best variants of that weapon's in Relic. So, I still find it a little odd sometimes with the Thunderhammer contested health, considering it is a slower weapon. It should give you back more contested health. But yeah, regardless, this is definitely one of those things that I just feel like it's awkward in the game, and it would be nice to like iron out a bit. And yeah, unfortunately, I guess I'm at the stance right now where I'm kind of arguing for buffs for relic weapons that are like still pretty decent. It's just the fact that they get outshined by lesser rarity variants that kind of make the relic weapons look bad. And I think in that case, just make the relic weapons a little bit faster, and that should be fine. I'm not too sure if the devs even like keep an eye on this sort of thing though. We talked about the disparity between the rarities for these weapons like quite a bit, to be completely honest. Like as far as like when we're covering weapons, like we'll showcase like the purple artificer whatever blocking chainsword, and it's not like it really stands out. You know what I mean? Like it stands out because purple chainsword, wow, it's better than a relic. But what I mean is it doesn't like stand out as an issue as far as like spore mines. Like spore mines like definitively needed a damage nerf, which they did get for patch 8. So I mean, unless this starts to really get on people's nerves with how bad some of these relic variants are as far as melee weapons are, I guess this is just gonna be this is just gonna be the case for relic melee weapons going forward. You know what though? I do admit with the Absolute 2.0. With Absolute 2.0, I'm not too concerned about siege mode as far as melee weapons are concerned. However, it would be nice to see, you know, obviously these weapons get a little bit of a speed buff. But with Absolute 2.0, I do think that is the opportunity to buff melee weapons, just merely from the fact that you're buffing Terminus enemies by, you know, their health pool by like 66% or something. So it's like, why not buff melee weapons at this point? If you're not really too concerned with the balance of the other parts of Absolute as far as like mobs are, yeah, dealing with Terminus enemies with melees is probably going to be a pain, right? Because they have higher health pools. So like doing melee against a Terminus might not be worth it at all. Yeah, regardless, I guess in that case, you know, buffing the speed of the blocking chainsword might not be that big of a deal. The relic blocking chainsword getting a speed buff might make sure that people aren't making a mistake by using a relic weapon in Absolute 2.0. You know what I mean? Like this, it's definitely, yeah, I can see why it's annoying. I understand everyone's points with this. It's 100% annoying. Yeah, relic weapons should probably be buffed. And yeah, and unfortunately, if that starts to overshadow some of these lesser rarity variants, that's probably just how it should be. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this. Siege mode will be coming out tomorrow, so there's going to be a lot of other things to talk about rather than the Artificer blocking chainsword. So I feel like this is our last opportunity to kind of, you know, iron out some criticism here to see if it's actually worth it to even go back and rework any of these. Ultimately, if there's a good blocking chainsword, doesn't matter what color rarity it is. I don't know. Regardless, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Thanks for watching.